According to Carl Jung, magicians are one of the most powerful archetypes in our human psyche. Now, we are going to learn what are the capabilities of a magician and how we can access this magician energy in our psyche. Whether it was the wizards or pharaohs in Egypt or the yogis, sages, tantrics or Taoists of the East who invented the secret of written language, who discovered the spiritual practices and made great discoveries in advanced geometry, medicine, astronomy and other science, or shamans and witch doctors who intermediates between human world and spirit world, entering altered state of consciousness. The magician is a universal archetype that has operated in human psyche throughout the history. Now, by accessing this magician energy within our psyche, we can completely transform our life and we can also help others to transform their life, which is one of the major capability and responsibility of a magician. Now, before that, it is necessary to explore the symbolic representation to understand what is a magician archetype. So, we will be looking at few stories and myths, and then we will be looking at the practical tips to access this magician energy. Magicians are able to see beyond what we experience as normal reality. This secret knowledge, of course, gives the magician an enormous amount of power. The energies of magician archetype, whenever and wherever we encounter them, are twofold. First, the magician is the knower and he is the master of technology. Secondly, he also acts as a ritual elder who guides the process of transformation both within and without. The magician is an initiate of secret and hidden knowledges of all kind. Now, what is this initiation process? All knowledge that takes special training to acquire is the province of the magician energy. For example, whether you are becoming a programmer, learning to communicate with computers, or a medical student grinding away day and night, studying the secrets of the human body, in all these type of apprenticeship, we are spending large amount of time, energy and money in order to be initiated into these rare fields, realms of secret power. All these are in the exact same position as the apprentice shaman or witch doctor in tribal societies. And as we see in the stories and myths, by using this power and wisdom he attained over years, the magician guides the hero in his journey of fighting the evil dragon. Now, this dragon can be outside or within us. Around the 1st century, the ancient Greek mystery religions and early Christianity gave rise to a movement called Gnosticism. Gnosis in Greek means knowing in a deep psychological or spiritual level. The Gnostics were knowers of the inner depth of human psyche and the hidden dynamics of the universe. They were really like the initial proto-depth psychologists. They taught their initiates how to discover their own unconscious motives and dive deep into the darkness of human delusions, and also how to attain finally the oneness with the higher self. But later, they were persecuted out of existence by the Catholic Church and other Christians. But even after the persecution by the early Christians, they could not cast out this magician class completely, because none of our instinctual energy of the psyche can be suppressed like that. So after a while, this tradition of the secret knowledge was resurfaced as in the Middle Age in Europe as alchemy. Now, most of us know that the alchemy was on one level the attempt to make gold from common materials. On that level, it was doomed to fail. But what most of us don't realize is that alchemy was also a spiritual technique for helping the alchemists themselves to achieve insight, self-awareness and personal transformation, that is the initiation into greater maturity. We can also say that to a large part that these alchemists gave birth to modern science, especially the science of chemistry and physics. Now, our modern science, just like the ancient magic, can be divided into two aspects. The first is the theoretical science, is the knowing aspect of this magician energy. The second is the applied science, which is the technological aspect of this magician energy. The applied knowledge of how to contain and channel the power. In our age of technological advancement, we have this power of materialistic knowledge and understanding of power over nature. Like we can see this initiation in workplace where we are training to learn a job, but we widely lack the other power, the non-materialistic, psychological or spiritual energy for personal growth and transformation, and there is a huge shortage for that. And the main reason for that is the absence of the role models or ritual elders for initiating young people. There are indications that Jung thought of himself as a magician. When asked once, does he believe in God? He replied in true Gnostic fashion.
Did you believe in God?
Oh, yes.
Do you now believe in God?
Now? Difficult to answer. I know.
Some of his earliest followers have said that he imparted secrets to them that they could not reveal except to those who are initiated into the highest or deepest levels of psychic awareness. Even if we start to confront our shadows with the process called shadow work, which is like the first step towards the process of individuation, which is the process of attaining psychological wholeness. If we don't do it carefully, and we are not ready to do it, we can completely distort our mental conditions because it will take us to the darkest, scary parts of our psyche, which are buried deep down inside our unconscious. Obviously, these are kept hidden from our ego self and our awareness due to this same reason. They may blow up our ego structure into bits. This process will also help us in a way to see and understand the shadow in others. That's why even analysts are very careful how much to reveal to an analysant at any given moment in right dose, because they have to make sure that they have the right amount of insulation to channel and contain this psychic energy. In the biblical story, after King David raped Bathsheba and had her husband killed, the prophet Nathan, who is the king's magician, was the one who indicted him about his great sin by telling a story and made him repent for it. So the magician archetype also acts as a bullshit detector for our psyche inside us. One aspect of the magician's knowing is that he can see into the depths not only of the nature but also into human beings. This is how he deflated the arrogance, especially of kings and other public officials. He can see evil for what and where it is, even it is hidden behind the mask of goodness, as we see in some occasions. Now, like every archetypes, magician also have its shadow aspects, mainly two. First one is the manipulator, driven by the lust of power. He withholds crucial information and uses his knowledge for his personal gains only. Other one is the denying innocent one, who always shy away from responsibility and true mastery. He also seeks status and power of the magician, but he is unwilling to work for it or guide or help others. Now, let's try to learn the capabilities of magician archetype and how we can access its power. For all ritual process, for all deep knowing and controlling of energies of any kind, we need a sacred space. Sacred space acts as a container of the raw power. It provides them the access to the energy and at the same time shield them from its raw intensity like a step-down transformer. It is the sanctuary of the church. It is the hymns and the standard prayers, the invocations and blessings used to invoke the divine power. Now, the knowledge about this is very necessary, else this is what happens when the apprentice of the sorcerer without full knowledge use magic and later end up in trouble because they don't know how to contain the power or step down it. In psychology, the magician archetype is the one who governs what's called the observing ego. This is not ego. The ego is the part of the mind that mediates between our desires, reality and morality, what we think we are. Ego is also necessary for our survival, but only when our ego is possessed by other energy system or archetypes the trouble happens. The observing ego is our inner witness, the part in our psyche who is capable of analyzing our thoughts, emotions, and actions. It is when the observing ego is aligned with the self, like a ego-self axis, we are initiated into the secret wisdom of the self. Now, there is a story of a middle-aged man who accessed his magician energy when he was facing an accident. Often, in difficult situations like this one, people are drawn into some kind of space and time frame that can be called sacred, which is so different from what we normally experience. This sacred space is something men who are guided by the magician know very well. Now, we cannot rely on near-death experience to experience this. Also, we need to experience this whenever we need, right? It is like the ritual where magicians who draw their magic circle and recite their spells. They enter this space by listening to certain musical pieces, or maybe when we are doing a hobby we are passionate about, or by taking long walks in the woods, or by meditating on certain themes and mental pictures, and by many other methods. When they enter this sacred space within, they can be in touch with the magician. They can emerge from the inner space, seeing what they need to do about a problem and knowing how to do it. The magician then is also the archetype of thoughtfulness and reflection, and because of that, it is also the energy of introversion. Introversion is not like the timidity or shyness, but more like the capacity to detach from the inner and outer storms and to connect with the deep inner truths and resources, like the formation of the ego self axis we learned earlier. Now, there's a good psychological exercise we can do to strengthen this connection with the magician energy called focusing. What we have to do is, next time when we experience strong emotions such as strong fear, anger, envy, or despair, sit down in an observation chair, and as the feelings come up, imagine placing them in the middle of the room, stacked carefully, and sit back and observe its color, shape, sensations if you feel any, and its emotional tones without judging and putting them down. Now, our magician energy will help observing ego to stack them separately and later transform this energy into life-enhancing forms of self-expressions. Now, for me, what helped the most is, it is actually a Buddhist meditation practice combining both samatha and vipassana, which help us to develop metacognitive introspective awareness. It helps the Buddhist practitioners to experience awakening. Now, to deepen the connection with ourselves and to bring the unconscious content to consciousness, we can also practice dream work and active imagination. In last video, I promised about that dream work video. I am working on it. I am trying to make it not that theoretical or boring. I promise I will finish it as soon as possible. That's it. See you in the next video.